in order to understand what the risk of scholars and professors in Venezuela, it is important, of course, to know that we live, Venezuelans in general, in a, I would say, the worst crisis in 50 years.
That was Alfredo Romero, Carr Center Policy Fellow at Harvard University and Executive Director of Foro Penal, speaking about the current conditions in Venezuela for academics as well as for the general public. In recent years, citizens have taken to the streets and the media to voice their discontent with the current administration under Nicolas Maduro, successor of Hugo Chavez. Yet those that do run the risk of facing a myriad of suppressive measures enacted by the government, as was the case for Dr. Romero while working in Venezuela.
As a lawyer, professor of public law, I teach human rights, and I decided, because of this, the increase of state repression, and specifically political prisoners, political detainees, people that have been tortured and killed. Why? Well, because they want a new government. Why? And why they protest? Well, they protest because there is no milk, there is no electricity, there is no water, there are no medicines. So the government started to increase state repression in order to maintain in power. And so people like me that decided to fight in some way this situation, not fight with a violent fight. It means as a lawyer, as a scholar, and we created this group of lawyers which still assists victims of the state repression, more than 200 lawyers all around the country, and I lead this organization, this NGO. So we are subject to persecution ourselves. Yeah. So in my case, I was blocking the street once. My car was blocked with another car, and people pointed at me with pointed guns at me. So I was lucky to accelerate my cars and run away.
With the assistance of the Scholar Rescue Fund, administered by the Institute of International Education, Dr. Romero has been able to briefly leave Venezuela. Nonetheless, he avidly works to bring awareness to the many issues prevalent in the country, with one such matter pertaining to the precarious state of public and private education.
Some of the main protests in Venezuela are basically caused because of the government attempts to change education and to include political ideology into the education. And it also happens with the primary education. So they have changed the whole curriculum in order to include their own history. Okay. So in order to include things that they want to include. So there, of course, one of the major, I would say, weapons that this government, these regimes use, learned from Cuba, for example, is education, from children to university education. But in Venezuela, even though they have changed the curricula and they have infected in some way education with political idealization, the civil society have reacted, and in some way they have had to go back in all what they wanted to do.
To get a better sense of what higher education looks like on the ground, we spoke with Nadine Souto, director of a higher education scholarship foundation based in Venezuela. She expands upon the conditions experienced by college students, with particular emphasis on those faced by her cousin, currently attending a university in Caracas, Venezuela.
One of the parts of civil life, you could say, that the government has tried to control or to significantly diminish is university education. And you have these in Venezuela. There are the two main public universities in Caracas are funded by the state. And there's a complete dependence there. And basically, the state has been unwilling to fund the universities to the extent that is needed and adjust budgets and so on, considering the state of the Venezuelan economy and inflation and everything. So now you have these universities which are constantly having to go on strike to demand better conditions. So in her case, she has had, since she started university in, I think it was 2013, she has had to miss about 2 to 3 trimesters of classes because of strikes. And now that she is back in class, there's shortage of professors because professors don't get paid what they would need in order to be able to survive in this economy. So also transport the transport unit that the university students rely on are many of them not functional, so there's very limited options for them to get to the university. Also the cafeteria that the university uses to provide meals to students has, I think, this week ceased operations. So it's just a state of complete disrepair, and obviously that affects the quality of education that students receive there. And the private universities are also affected, of course, because any and every institution and individual in Venezuela is struggling.
Reporting from New York City, Edgar Rivera, IENN.